Hello BookTube. Today for Tag Tuesday, I feel up for some tag necromancy. So I'll be doing the Reading the Humanities tag. This tag was created by Mark Richardson of Richardson Reads, and I'm getting the prompts from Steve Donahue. Sadly, Mark Richardson no longer is making videos here on BookTube, and his channel has been set to private, or I don't think it's been technically nuked. I don't know. But Mark's no longer an active booktuber, so I don't think I can actually link to his channel. I'll try. If not, I'll just mention in the show notes that Mark created it, but leave a link to, but not include a link to his channel. But I will leave a link to Steve Donahue. So anyway. Hope that makes some sense. So anyway, let's get going because there are quite a few prompts. So prompt number 1, a book or author who uses anthropology in their work. When I thought of this prompt, when I watched the video earlier, I kind of was drawing a blank, and then I'm like, wait a minute, Ursula K. Le Guin. While I don't think she herself was ever a professional anthropologist, I think her father was. And I think her father's work and anthropology in general did influence her world building and her themes in her science fiction work. So I'll go with Ursula K. Le Guin. For prompt number 2, a book or author who uses archaeology in their work. So this prompt immediately brought Agatha Christie to mind. Agatha Christie's second husband, Max Mallowan, was a professional archaeologist, and Agatha Christie used her familiarity with archaeology in a number of her works. Not only did she write a memoir of a dig, Come Tell Me How You Live, but she also utilized her archaeological knowledge in at least 2 novels. Death Comes at the End, which is set in ancient Egypt, and Murder in Mesopotamia. And I think you could probably argue Death on the Nile also includes some archaeological knowledge. So I'll go going with Agatha Christie for this one. Prompt number 3. Have you read a work from ancient Greece or Rome? If so, what was it, and do you have a favorite author or work? So I've read some works from ancient Greece and Rome. Not much, though, although there isn't much to begin with. But from the Greeks, I've read Homer, I've read Sappho, I've read the Oresteia from Aeschylus. I think I've read a few other plays, and some of the poetry. But I can't really give you specifics because it's been a very long time. And for the Romans, I know for sure I've read the Metamorphoses of Ovid and the Aeneid of Virgil. And I think that's about it. I'm much fonder of the Greeks than I am of the Romans. Although, do I have a favorite? Not really. And do I have a favorite work? Again, not really. I'm not really that compelled to read the classics, which is what the literature of ancient Greece and Rome are called. Prompt number 4. History. Do you have a favorite historical period you enjoy reading about? Yes. My favorite area of history is the Bronze Age, Near East. So, say, Mesopotamia, the Hittites, or Anatolia, the Levant, and Egypt. I love reading about those cultures. I also have other areas that I'm interested in. Alexander and the successors the Italian Renaissance, 19th century Germany, British history. So it's quite a bit. And I would love to learn more and find more areas of interest. Prompt number 5, linguistics or language. Reading is about language, among other things. What is your favorite translated work of history? Although I'm thinking this actually meant more than just history. So I'm going to give a few examples. So my favorite translated work of history are two: Tombstone and The World Turned Upside Down by Yang Jixing. These are monumental, exhaustive histories of the Great Famine, which is the subject of Tombstone, and the Cultural Revolution, which is The World Turned Upside Down. And they are amazing works. So for poetry, I'm going to go with A View of a Grain of Sand by Wisława Szymborska. It's a slim, collected edition of her poetry that I have had for almost 20 years, if not over 20 years. I adore that collection. It is wonderful. And for fiction, I'll go with Master of Go by Yasunari Kawabata. It's a lightly fictionalized account of the retirement match of Honinbo Shuzai, Master of Go, and a young challenger, Minoru Kitani, that Yasunari Kawabata covered in the late 30s. Prompt number 6, law and politics. Do you read political books or books related to the law? Favorites, if so? I've read a few, but I don't know necessarily if I could. More politics than the law, which I have zero interest in. But, I mean, I can't really call them favorites because while I know I've read them, I can't actually remember the titles. I know one was by Steve Kornacki, and the other two were written by the guy who was one of the head honchos at the Lincoln Project. Prompt number 7, literature does not have a universally accepted definition. What's yours? So I'm going to agree with Steve that literature is written works produced in a time period. It's basically everything and anything that has been written down that can later be studied, either for artistic appreciation, for entertainment, for educational purposes, or for communication. Prompt number 8. Philosophy is the love of wisdom. Have you read a work of philosophy? Now, I don't know. Because there's this weird thing where, so I was an English lit major with the aspiration to eventually getting a doctorate. And one of the things about literary theory is its relationship to philosophy, and how some, and I'm not entirely sure if some works of literary theory or critical theory are more or less philosophy or not. But I've never really been all that interested in philosophy, so I don't know necessarily if I really have read any works of philosophy one way or other, except for like the snippets of Plato and Aristotle that you will find in your standard literary theory anthology. Prompt number 9, religion. Name a book or author that has influenced your personal view of religion. I don't have one. I'm one of those atheists who really are not all that interested in religion. I know some are. Steve Donahue is a wonderful example, but I could care less. So I don't have an answer for this one. Prompt number 10, performing arts. Musicology, theater, and dance often put the performer front and center. Do you have a favorite author? Is there a book about their performance? So this prompt, it's a bit weird because, I mean, the do you have a favorite author would imply just in general. But the second question, is there a book about their performance? What's, is this like a biography? So say, for example, let's go with Dickens. I mean, he's not my favorite, but I'm using him as an example. So say Dickens and then a biography of Dickens, or is this more meant to cover a writer who's either written on or is a performer of music, theater, or dance? So say, for example, me, Elton John, and then Me by Elton John would work. So if it's the later, like a book about a musician or singer or an actor or dancer, I mean, I haven't really read a huge amount. So, I mean, my go-to would be Me by Elton John. But if it's just a general favorite author, and is there a book about them? I mean, I guess I could say Agatha Christie because there is a biography about her, or at least one biography, and I know she wrote an autobiography, but I'm not entirely sure if she's necessarily still a favorite of mine because I haven't really felt the desire to really read her since I had a disastrous reread of The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. So, anyway, let's move on to prompt number 11. Visual arts. Do you have a favorite visual artist or type? Do the two relate? Are there any books that address this relationship? Okay, so I have a ton of favorite artists, and I am currently kicking myself because I forgot to actually look them up. Because I was wanting to do a poll thing on like the canonical artists, and then maybe do some comic book artists and some manga artists, but I completely forgot to do that. So let's see if I can remember them. So I think I remember, I like Mary Cassatt and Monet. So I like the Impressionists and the neoclassical, the art school that came before them. I really like them too. The Tadema or Alma Tadema, who Steve Donahue mentioned in his video, his work is quite good. I also like Thomas Eakins, I think that's his name, and a whole slew of others, but none are actually rolling off my, I'm not quite smoothly recalling them at the moment. As far as comics are concerned, they're also contemporary artists who often get left out. I really like Liz Haywood Sullivan. She does some great landscapes. Alain Picard, he does some fabulous landscapes and portraits. Tony Alain, Karen Margulis, Marla Baguetta does some great work. Peter Woods. Some of these artists are actually on YouTube, although some don't necessarily film as often as they used to. David Finch for comics. Nicola Scott. She's a fabulous artists. And then manga, I mean, I adore Hiro Mishima's work. Kohei Horikoshi's work's amazing. Gege Gutami, Hiromu Arakawa, so on and so forth. So there's a ton. Anyway, and I think that's it, except to tag people. So if you would like to do this tag, this is an old tag. So if you're a newer booktuber, it would be fun to maybe it might be fun to do this tag. But anyway, booktube, that's all I got for today. So I think I'm either going to do maybe a tag tomorrow or talk a bit about YouTube, because I do still want to do a YouTube centric video inspired by a series of Steve streams that Steve Donahue did last week. So anyway, booktube, until I see you tomorrow, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.